While meant to be informative and empowering, this presentation contains content about depression and suicidal ideation. Please see a member of your support team if you need support at any time. Use the code to access a list of resources.
Hello, Mundelein High School. I'm Mr. Mahoney, one of the social workers here. Today we're going to be talking about the Erika's Lighthouse Depression Education and Suicide Awareness Program. This program was inspired by a young person named Erika. Erika was a bright light who sadly lost her battle with depression in 2004 at the age of 14. Erika's Lighthouse was founded in her honor and is dedicated to helping other young people learn about depression and overcome the stigma surrounding mental health disorder. In this presentation, you will define that depression is a common mood disorder with specific changes in moods, thoughts, and behaviors. You will explain that there is not one reason someone has depression. We will recognize that depression can get better and you can find support, and explain that good self-care is a key piece to managing depression. And we'll describe that self-harm and suicidal thoughts are symptoms of depression that we must take very seriously. Now we will see a brief video regarding depression, education, and suicide awareness.
Depression is like gravity in the sense that it's a force that's constantly with you and constantly has its effect on you, but it's always kind of redirecting your thoughts and your feelings into a more negative space.
Today we're going to share personal stories about depression from real teens who found hope. Depression is a common mood disorder with specific changes in moods, thoughts, and behaviors.
Depression is very isolating. It makes you feel very alone and disconnected from people around you. It also feels really hopeless. Like, I just remember for me, I felt like it was not going to end, and I felt like there wasn't really a way to get out of it.
I used to think that when someone was depressed, it was because they were not mentally strong enough, you know? But then I realized that is so wrong. There's always this message for boys, Latinos, man, that, oh, tienes que ser el hombre de la casa, tienes que ser el que tiene los pantalones puestos. That goes against being a human, has emotions, has feelings. We all feel, and my message is, allow yourself to feel.
Depression is like a big sinking feeling, at least for me. When I'm really depressed, I'm just really self-defeating. The majority of the people around me probably didn't know that I had depression, or they probably didn't know that I was that way, because I just tried to be the light of everybody's day. I would say the people that it affected the most were my mom and my dad. They were the ones that saw me when I was exhausted from the day of trying to pretend.
I've had depression my entire life. Both my depression and my gender identity are things that are within my first memories, and they're things that come up in all of my significant memories over my lifetime. Your body looks wrong to you. It doesn't mean your body is wrong, it just means it looks wrong to what you're expecting it to be.
So I grew up with a parent that suffered from depression. With my first experience with depression, my family dynamics changed. My dad had to go away, and it was something that I wasn't used to. I was very close to my dad.
I mean, I always wanted to be the best when it came to sports, school, everything. So I always felt the need to always be better and do better. Always be overwhelmed, I guess, because I'd always be trying to do the most, and because of that, I created lots of anxiety for myself. And because of all the anxiety building up, it really led to me being just too overwhelmed and leading towards my depression, I would say.
Depression can be short-lived to long-lasting, mild to severe, a one-time episode, or on and off throughout a lifetime. Roughly 15 to 20% of young people will experience an episode of depression before they reach adulthood. Most will experience mild or moderate depression. From time to time, everyone feels sad, angry, or moody. That doesn't mean you have depression. Only a mental health professional can diagnose depression. Depression's when you have at least 5 symptoms present every day for 2 weeks or more. These symptoms should be a change from what is normal for you and include sadness, anger, or moodiness, loss of interest or pleasure in favorite activities, change in appetite or weight, sleeping too much or too little, restlessness or sluggishness, extreme tiredness, trouble making decisions or focusing, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, thoughts of suicide or self-harm. It's important to recognize that depression can look different in different people. Some warning signs of depression may include abuse of drugs or alcohol, problems in school or relationships, aches and pains, running away, self-harm, and not caring about your appearance. Depression can happen to anyone, anywhere. There's not one reason someone has depression.
My depression comes from dealing with some things with peers and some struggles there, and then some struggles with my family. For a long time, my parents' divorce was really a main factor of my depression, just because I felt like I had to kind of be an item and be going back and forth between house to house. And one thing was like, mom said this, but dad said this. Having my parents argue and feeling like I was kind of getting caught in the middle. I kind of feel like a part of my value as a person was sort of lost in that. That was really hard to deal with for a long time.
I come from Mexico City, el sur de la Ciudad de Mexico. The hardest part for me about coming into the US was leaving my mom and my grandma and my dog behind, I must say. Because they are the ones that know me the best. So at first, I was like, no, I'm cool, I'm good. But in reality, I did know I was struggling with something, you know?
When I really became depressed around my freshman year of high school, and after like a really bad day, my dad kind of sat down and really told me what his depression was like. And I never really knew how it impacted him. His parents, they're immigrated from Korea, really high standards when it comes to academics. Being the absolute best when it comes to schoolwork as possible is the only thing they cared about. So his depression stemmed a lot off of that. It definitely makes me feel better, I would say, because it gives me more reason to not blame myself. Because if it is in genetics, it's something that I can't control.
My experience with community violence was definitely heartbreaking. I think that's what started me going down in the spiral, because it was something that I just didn't understand. I couldn't put an answer to. With community violence, it could be upsetting because you don't know why this is happening. This person is gone for forever, and I'm not going to see them again. And they're going for something so stupid and so senseless.
My depression comes from a high-pressure community. My depression comes from my struggles with my gender identity. Having depression and being transgender are both things that kind of forced me to grow up a lot. I don't think I would have learned how resilient I'm capable of being, and I don't think I would have learned how to cope with stress in general.
A number of things can put a person at a higher risk for depression, including a family history of depression, having an emotionally sensitive personality, an ongoing medical condition, anxiety disorder, or substance abuse disorder, poor health due to not getting enough exercise, sleep, or food, a stressful event, trauma, or big change in your past or present, such as being bullied, feeling unaccepted or discriminated against, a stressful, dangerous, or unreliable community, school, or home environment, loss of a loved one, or ending of an important relationship. You may recognize some of these factors in yourself. However, simply having these experiences doesn't mean you have or will have depression. Life circumstances can play a big role in causing depression, including circumstances over which we have little control. Nevertheless, it's important to remember that we do have choices in life, and that it's often possible to draw meaning and strength from even negative experiences. Depression can get better, and you can find support. If you think you have depression, talking to a trusted adult is the first step.
For me, getting help, first of all, telling my mom that I was feeling different, accepting what I was feeling. So that's when she said, I knew it, I told you. That's good that you came up to me. My coach, he was like a mentor kind of thing, like a father I never had, kind of. He noticed that I was not as sharp mentally.
A trusted adult can include anyone from a parent to an adult family member, family friend, coach, teacher, religious leader, mentor, social worker, or counselor. Asking for help can feel overwhelming, but most people feel greatly relieved once they start this process. Not every adult will be comfortable with this conversation or know what to suggest. Some adults' personal or cultural beliefs about depression may even make it difficult for them to connect you with help. If necessary, keep talking to different adults in your life until you find someone who understands and can get you connected with the help you need and deserve. Talking about depression and asking for help is a sign of maturity and takes a lot of courage. When you talk to a trusted adult, they might suggest you meet with a therapist, a social worker, counselor, or psychologist, either at your school or in your community. A therapist can help you figure out the best course of action and provide you with support, advice, and skills to help you better manage your depression. During therapy, additional support may be recommended, like group therapy, family therapy, or medication.
My mom chose a therapist for me. I didn't look for it, so I had faith and trust in my mom. So I knew she would make a right choice. The first sessions were just like, how are you? Like basic stuff like, what is your name? What do you like to do? Getting to know me. After a while, that's when I really started opening up in truly, I guess, the core of my depression.
What is said between you and your therapist is kept private, unless they're worried about your safety or someone else's safety. Sometimes you might need to see a couple of different therapists before finding the person whose personality and style is right for you.
Every time I've had a therapist, I've just treated it as a little like talk session with a friend, I guess, that's an adult. I mean, even in my healthiest times, I'll see a therapist just because it's nice to be able to talk to someone just about anything that's going on, really.
Therapy is just the way that it's non-judgmental. It's like hearing it from her, it sounds so much better than hearing it from a family member because I know there's no bias. I was just so addicted to like being able to express myself and just get it off my chest. Like I didn't want to hold in those feelings anymore.
Sometimes talk therapy can be expensive, or it may be hard to find in your area. Someone at school, like a nurse, counselor, or social worker, may be able to connect you with either free or reduced fee mental health care in your community or virtual support. Other places you may find support in your area can be your local community center, church, temple, or mosque. In addition to talking to a therapist, good self-care is a key piece to managing depression. Doing things you enjoy, keeping your body healthy, and having supportive relationships are all examples of things that are helpful when you have depression.
The things that I do personally to help manage my depression, the first one is mindfulness practices. I do a lot of deep breathing, a lot of centering into the moment. I would say a lot of fear in general, but depression comes a lot from thinking too much about the past and the future simultaneously, interchangeably. And mindfulness is a really good way to bring you right back into this moment.
Eating healthy, being athletic, like getting outside, having a clean area to live in, not having clutter. I feel like clutter makes me pretty anxious.
Something that really helped me was putting the way I felt into words and kind of putting that down on paper, because for me it feels like kind of a release, because you have it all bottled up and finally you're able to like write it down, and then all of a sudden it's like it's not here anymore, it's on the paper. And so that's something that really helps me, and I still continue to do that all the time.
The first thing that really helped me was kind of empowering myself. I got involved in an organization that talked about mental health and that kind of taught people what mental health was and kind of how to deal with it and how to handle it. It gave me kind of a tangible way to fight back at something that's so intangible.
Church was one of the major things that helped me out because it just gave me a sense of hope in that God is going to look out for me and He's there for me.
Love yourself at all times. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling.
Self-harm and suicidal thoughts are symptoms of depression that we must take very seriously.
I did have moments of thinking about suicide and self-harm. For me, it happens when I rationalize in my mind that the world itself would be better off if I wasn't there.
My baseline stress level was at such a high point that anything would tip it. Any little thing would push me over to the point where I'm just overwhelmed. I think sometimes if you're constantly tipping over and constantly over constantly overflowing and with stress over time, you'll end up reaching a point where you kind of don't want to deal with it anymore. And you start considering things like suicide. I think that that's something that was almost constant for me in high school, just because I was almost constantly just overflowing in that stress level, kind of thing.
Self-harm is when people hurt themselves or put themselves in dangerous situations because they're feeling a lot of emotional pain and don't know what to do. People who self-harm can hurt themselves seriously, or more seriously than they intended. Relative to the number of people who have depression, suicide is rare. There's never a simple reason why it happens. Each situation is unique and complex. What is most important to know is that you should take any sign of suicide very seriously. Signs include talking about not being around anymore or having no reason to live, giving away prized possessions or saying goodbye to everyone, feeling unbearable pain, hopelessness, or like you're trapped, don't belong, or are a burden to others. If you notice signs of suicide in yourself or someone you care about, you must tell a trusted adult immediately. There is hope. There are people who care and can help.
Freshman year of high school, which was when I first realized I was really depressed and had suicidal thoughts. So that was kind of the big point when I really realized I really needed more help. I needed to see a psychiatrist as well as a therapist.
I remember I was feeling more than I'd ever had. I was feeling very, very suicidal. And for whatever reason, I had one class period where I just had a moment of clarity, and I said, I need to go tell someone about this right now. And so I went to my counselor's office.
Ultimately, people confide in friends with things like suicidal thoughts because it's a cry for help. They know they can come to you because you care. That's their way of saying, I need help and I don't know what to do.
There's a lot you can do to support a friend who has depression. First, if you're worried a friend has depression, ask them if they've talked to a trusted adult. You could even help them talk to a trusted adult if they haven't had that conversation yet. If your friend is already getting help, know that you can still play an important role in helping them feel loved and supported.
I feel like my friends were a big part in my return to being healthy and just helping me cope with everything. They were always there and they never looked at me differently.
Having someone close to you struggle with depression can be difficult because it leaves you as a friend sometimes feeling a little bit helpless. Your job is to support them. It's not to advise them on how to live their life and how to manage the depression. Your job is just to be the support system for them and to listen. There is a bright side. You can live with it. I've learned that from Alan. He's such a successful person and he goes after his goals and really inspires me.
If you find that you're facing something that is unbearable, it's okay to get help. No matter what anyone has said to you, no matter if you feel embarrassed or you feel like you're alone, first, you're not alone. Do not be scared and seek the help that you need to seek. Never let that one person stop you from overcoming this because you can overcome it. And this will not be the end all be all. You will be okay.
I know what it feels like to be in that really dark place, and this doesn't have to be the end, and that if our lives are books, let's say, if our lives are books, then depression does not have to be the entire book, and it also does not have to be the last chapter. It is just a chapter in the middle, and you can just flip through the pages, and there's more at the end that doesn't look like that anymore.
You are special. You are incredible. And things are really tough right now. You will overcome all of it.
To find out more information about depression and Erika's Lighthouse, go to www.erikaslighthouse.org. If you or someone you know is in immediate risk of harm, call 911. If you or someone you know is having suicidal thoughts and can't find a trusted adult to talk to, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or text the Crisis Text Line by texting LISTEN to 741-741.
As we just saw referenced in the video, we're going to talk about symptoms of depression. The symptoms that we discuss are we need at least 5 symptoms to be present most every day for at least 2 weeks in order for it to be considered depression. So the symptoms would be a depressed mood or sadness or irritability, a loss of interest or pleasure in activities, change in weight or appetite, change in sleep, feeling sped up or slowed down, fatigue or loss of energy, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, trouble concentrating or making decisions, or thoughts of death or acts of self-harm. Again, each of these 5 symptoms present most every day for at least 2 weeks.
What are some examples of stigma that some of the teens in the video experienced? Stigma is the belief that if you need help, you will be disrespected or disgraced. We are now going to talk about some protective factors that can help with depression or sadness. Positive support from family and friends, having trusted adults and mental health professionals in the school, mental health professionals through outside agencies, healthy coping strategies including mindfulness practice, self-care, healthy habits such as sleep, exercise, and diet, extracurricular activities, and medication. We're now going to hear some follow-up questions with our teens. We're going to ask, why is it so hard for teens to talk about their depression?
I feel like it's hard to talk about your depression because there are so many stigmas around it, and you feel like if you're comfortable where you're at, and it's hard to change, especially if you don't like change.
Would reach out to oh, I have depression to a friend, and they just won't believe you.
Sometimes you feel like you can handle it by yourself, and it's honestly really difficult to admit that you can't do something and you can't work it out by yourself. So that definitely makes it hard for teens to talk about when they're struggling.
I think it's hard for teens to talk about depression because of the ideas and the stereotypes around it. They believe that people who suffer from depression are incapable of doing anything, and they have to have people by them 24/7, which is very false. People with depression do still function like normal human beings. It's just that obviously they have mental health. That's something that they have to constantly keep track of so they don't lose themselves.
What self-care strategies do you use?
I definitely love to talk to other people. When I'm not feeling great, I need to get out of my head, so I always go talk to anybody, whether it's my friends or my parents or anybody at school.
I use deep breathing. I breathe in for 4 seconds, and then I hold for 7 seconds, and then I breathe out for 8 seconds.
And so I like drawing, coloring. I use tip, which either you can splash water on your face, like cold water, or you can hold ice cubes or an ice pack or anything that's near you that's a different temperature than what you're at. I love music. Music is definitely one of my favorite self-care strategies. Music relaxes me, even if it's hype music. Music is there for whatever mood I'm going through, whether it's happy, sad, angry. So, yeah.
And who do you go to for support?
If I can call somebody, I would go to one of my teachers because I first at the beginning of the year let them know what's going on, and I just tell them, if I'm feeling this way, then here's what I need from you. Or I use my cooking skills, and then I go to my social worker. I go to Mr. Novak. He's definitely a great person to utilize in the building. He's super nice. He's an amazing person to talk to, and he truly listens and also he gives you advice for whatever it is you're going through and find solutions to your problems.
I go to my therapist, my Strive teachers, or really close friends.
Having a hard time, I call my parents just to talk on the phone with them, or my sister, or I'll go to Miss Penwell a lot because she's a really good resource to talk to.
If a friend at your school felt depressed, list 2 people or resources that would be trustworthy and reliable.
Honestly, any of your teachers is a reliable resource. They are there to help you. That's their job, whether that is academically, mentally, whatever it is. And also your support team, your counselor, psychologist, social worker, UD, doesn't matter who you go to because they will find you the right help for whatever it is you're going through. Honestly, just any of my teachers if my friend needed help.
Your school psychologist or your social worker, and then I would say definitely go visit the wellness center. It's a really good calming area to kind of just get your head back in a good space.
We're now going to go into some definitions. The definition of suicide is death caused by self-directed, injurious behavior with intent to die as a result of the behavior. Self-harm is when people intentionally hurt themselves or put themselves in dangerous situations because they are feeling a lot of pain and don't know what else to do. It is often a sign of emotional distress. What would you do if a friend was feeling suicidal and turned to you for help?
First, I would tell a trusted adult and tell them how, what is happening with them. And then they would handle it from there. And if I need to stay with that person, I will, of course. And I will help them to calm down and help them use coping strategies and stuff like that.
Probably bring them to a trusted adult and talk about it.
Definitely stay with them for how they were feeling like that. I would try to talk to them and assess how much help they needed in that moment, because they do need help if they're feeling that way. And then from there, we would either call a hotline, get in contact with some teachers or parents, depending where we're at, and figure out how to solve the situation.
Find them help whether they want it or not, because though people who are depressed typically, wherever they are, they're comfortable, it's better to find them help before it gets super serious. So.
You rock.
You're doing great. Stay classy.
It's okay to ask for help.
Remember that we all have some trusted adults in this school. If you can, always think about at least 2 adults that you would go to, such as their social workers, counselors, teachers, security staff, front office staff, anyone that you find that can help you. It's good to know that there are people who support you in this building, and if you don't have anyone to support you, we would love to help you find one.
Your mental health matters, and so do you.